For our senior seminar project, we decided to focus on the comparison of presence of the elongate hemlock scale in the hemlock woolly Adelgid in central and western Massachusetts. I'm Hannah, and you can see me on the left, and you can see my partner Natasha on the right.
So we focused on these hemlock trees because hemlocks are considered to be a very important foundational species, especially in the northeastern United States. They provide habitat for a lot of the native wildlife here, and they're also an important food source for winter grazers. We found this map that shows the varying different vegetation type that's predominant in different parts of Massachusetts. So these darker gray squared off areas are areas that the hemlock northern hardwood forest with chestnut trees are predominant. And then in these areas with the blacker squared off areas are the hemlock northern hardwood predominant areas. So with these two areas combined, it consists about half of the predominant vegetation type throughout Massachusetts alone.
So we focus on two invasive species, the first being the elongate hemlock scale, which you can see on the left. It presents itself as brown dots on the underside of the needles of the hemlock tree, as well as the hemlock woolly adelgid, which you can see on the right, which presents itself as a white fluffy substance that makes a bead at the base of each needle.
So our research question was, how does elevation impact the presence of each of these species of invasive insect? Our experiment was we sampled different sites throughout Massachusetts at varying elevation to determine if there was a influence of the abundance of each species and the elevation. And our hypothesis was that at higher elevations, there'll be lower abundance of these invasive species. And at the lower elevations, there'll be a higher level of abundance. And this is due to the fact that we found through previous research that cold spells tend to kill off these invasive species and reduce the numbers in those areas. And the higher elevations tend to have a lower daily temperature, and then an average yearly temperature is lower than areas at lower elevation.
So, in order to test our hypothesis, we sampled at 11 different sites throughout Massachusetts with varying elevations between 148 feet and 3,491 feet. We recorded the abundance of each insect in categories of high, mild, low, or not seen. We observed 30 to 40 hemlock trees at each site. And as an indicator of overall tree health, we recorded percent needle coverage in categories of 0 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 75, and 75 to 100%. As an indicator of tree age, we also recorded diameter at breast height.
So this is a map of the different observation sites that we looked at. I looked at these 6 different sites in Western Massachusetts, and Hannah looked at these 5 sites in Central Massachusetts, and we compared the data collectively as a group.
So here are results from the not cited and low abundances. On the x-axis of each graph, we have the elevation of the town, and on the y-axis, we have the percent abundance at each category. The only data here that supports our hypothesis is the scale at the not cited abundance, and this shows that at a higher elevation, you expect to see less of the insect observed.
And as Hannah said, these are 2 graphs showing the mild percent abundance and the high percent abundance using the same x-axis for the elevation of the towns and the percent abundance on the y-axis. And again, we only found a significant value with the scale at the mild percent abundance. And with this downward trend line, it shows a support for our hypothesis that as you're at the lower elevations, you are more likely to find these mild percent abundances than you would at a higher elevation. You can also see this trend being followed in the high percent abundance, but it is not statistically significant. So we can't make a conclusion based on that alone.
So, in conclusion, the only significant data that we found was at the not cited and mild infestation rates for the scale. The other ones were not statistically significant. Therefore, we were able to support our hypothesis for the scale that at lower elevations we would expect to see higher abundances, but the hypothesis was inconclusive for the Adelgid.